You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello there, Miss Mills. Oh, I am doing just fine. And it was a pleasure to receive a call from you. It's always nice to hear from you. Why, thank you. Yes, been working on a lot of stuff out here, so it's good that we can get a chance to get some updates. What new things are going on in your world? Oh yeah, yeah, I hear that quite a bit. They love to take money and put it in that Betterment Fund, and I think that's one of the most shady things out there. It's being used for stuff that it's not designed to be used for, and since there's no accountability for it, they can do whatever they want. And I've read cases where they're buying gifts for staff members, and if they would use it for truly what they were supposed to use it for, which is for you guys, I think there would be a little less stress and probably more relaxation in there and teamwork. There'd be a lot of positive stuff, and it's on paper it's good, but to keep taking money from you like that, and so what was their reason on this one? Yeah, I went through a similar incident with Paula, so it doesn't surprise me at all. Now just remember, you've got to appeal, and when you do appeal, make sure you have a plan. What do you expect? What do you want the DOC to do? And go in there and just keep fighting until you get it. And the only way you lose something like this is just to give up. And I think a lot of folks just don't fight it. They'll accept the fact that their money was taken for whatever reason, and it's too much of a hassle to fight. But that's why you have people on the outside that can speak up for you and give you the support that you need. Supportive relationships are key, and I suggest that you reach out to everybody you possibly can. Now that's good news. And since she was the one who sent you the money that was confiscated, make sure she puts in an appeal too. She can write to the Department of Corrections and explain why she felt that the money shouldn't have been taken. And have her look over the policy just to make sure. Because, you're only allowed to send money to one person. And if she, without thinking, sent money to somebody else, whether it was accepted or rejected, that's a good cause to deny the funds for you. But of course, not all of them. I mean, with me, they denied it once. After that, I didn't have any problem. But it shouldn't have happened. Well, okay, that's good, and having friends in there and able to work out deals is a good backup. And so, since they took the funds that you needed, you're able to get some support from somebody else, and it wasn't a complete loss. It's just that now you have some extra work to do, and it's just not fair to you. And even in lockup, your time is valuable. And there's absolutely no reason for them to be messing around with that. And if they don't have the staffing, or if they don't have the training, the proper education, you shouldn't suffer for
You
it.
have 60 seconds remaining.
And as I keep emphasizing, if they can't afford to put the people in prison, and if they can't give them the proper treatment, then they shouldn't be putting the people in prison. Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of nice alternative prison resources out there. I really like the home monitoring because you get out, you work, and then you have to pay for
You have 30 seconds remaining.
the process. And for single moms, that is fantastic. Well, that's it. That's what you should advocate for. Have your family look into that. And a lot of DAs, they're willing to entertain the idea. So have them talk to the district attorney. I mean, you could also go to attorneys.
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I'm your host, Joel Wilborn. And in this issue of Inmate Call, I'll pretty much piggyback on some of the other episodes that I've done that concern the misuse of facilities, resources, manpower, anything that's under the control of the Department of Corrections. Now, prisons, state and federal, across the country, have a fund set up that's supposed to help incarcerated people with special activities, phone calls, upkeep, little out of the ordinary expenses that normally aren't covered by the budgets. And on paper, it sounds super fantastic. And it's kind of a mystery because you don't really hear too much about it, and I don't think the public hears a lot about this Betterment Fund. And this might be the first time you guys are actually hearing about it, too. Now, at the time I was introduced to this, it was called the Inmate Betterment Fund in the state of Washington. Now, inmate has become not politically correct. Even though I still use it and the people who are incarcerated still use it, it's something that's kind of frowned upon, making it look like these people are bad. So they call them incarcerated individuals, or I/I. And to me, I would rather just name people, Jane Doe, John Doe, rather than I. But hey, maybe in the future it'll change. But for now, this Betterment Fund is in the state of Washington is called Incarcerated Individual Betterment Fund. Now, just to give you a background on a particular case for me. On May 5th, 2020, I proposed to Paula Gardner, and she accepted. So after that, she became my fiancée until she was released on clemency. Now, during that period, she needed some funds. Now, the state of Washington, they'll only allow you to fund one incarcerated individual unless you can get approval from the superintendent. So if your loved one is in Washington State Penitentiary, and then you have another loved one who's in Mission Creek Correction Center for Women, you can write their prospective superintendents and ask to be able to fund all these people. And if these folks agree, then you'll be put on a list. And so whenever you send money to these individuals that's on your list, the mailroom will look at it and say, okay, this person is approved, and the money will go through. Now, I decided to go one step further. Since I was having all kinds of issues with the Department of Corrections, which was fine. It gave me something to do. I wrote a letter to the superintendent of the Washington Correction Center for Women, and I asked if Paula Gardner could be approved for funding. And she came back with a written letter, signed by her. Yes, you can send funds to Paula Gardner. And I started funding her. Now, sometimes she would need funds put on her medical so she could buy prescriptions and medication. Sometimes her commissary so she could buy food, clothing, and sometimes a media where she can buy movies and download songs. So it worked out for me. She would call me, tell me what she needed. Now, since I couldn't use email because they claimed that I was in violation of all these different policies that they never named, I mailed in a money order whenever I needed to put money on her account. And I'd put her name on it, her DOC number, and my address, and I'd sign it and I'd send it in. Sometimes I would miss something and they'd send it back, but that was pretty much minimum issues. I would still get the funds sent to her. Now, one day she calls me up. She says she needs $25 put on the books. So I go down and get a money order. I mail it in, and then I got this rejection notice that I had funded another incarcerated individual. And so, since you can only fund one, unless you have prior approval, which I did not, they denied this. Now, month after month, the money would go to Paula. Now, remember, I don't use email because I was blocked from that. Permanently suspended, they said. So I mail them in. So somebody would have had to have mailed in a money order to, let's say, a person named Jane Doe. And Jane Doe received funds from me. And then when the approved person receives funds, they reject it. So an unapproved person receives funds from me. An approved person does not. That was confusing. So I put in an appeal, and I said, this is on you. Why did you give funds to somebody who wasn't approved? At best, I should have gotten a denial that said you attempted to fund an unauthorized person, so we're not going to allow that. And that I can understand, because then they would name the person, and that's that. But I had no name. I had nothing. I didn't know what was going on. And imagine Paula. If she gets that too, it's like, who else are you funding? And I don't know. But in their answer, they were saying that she should have appealed it. And she didn't. And it's difficult to appeal something like that with the funding. It's usually the incarcerated individual that has to do it. And I'm not sure how the incarcerated individual would know. This is a great way to guarantee a denial, because no matter what Paula would have said, they could have easily denied it because, well, for one, how would you know? She can't send him a letter and says, no, he didn't send to anybody else. She doesn't know. And there's no way she could know. Even if I told her, the best she could do, to be honest, would say, he told me he didn't. And she would have to see the fund, maybe the money order, and say, here's the money order. It's signed by him. It's from his address, and it's addressed to somebody who's not approved. So she was at a disadvantage, and that's kind of iffy for me. So I decided, well, okay, who is this other person? Maybe I can contact this person and say, what's going on? Why'd you use my name? But I didn't get any information. So they were telling me, we're not going to talk about it anymore, and it's not going to go anywhere. And this was just classic for them. So in the state of Washington, they had the Freedom of Information Act, so I can get any information that's on the public file. So I asked for anything that's pertaining to this particular rejection, and I got an email that was sent from the supervisor in the mailroom, Bernadette Jones, at the Washington Correction Center for Women. And she wrote to her supervisors that she knew the person, this other person, but she wasn't going to tell me specifically. And so I wrote to some of these other people that were on the list, and I said, you have this information. You can share this with me. But they refused to talk to me. So I have a right to know whoever I send money to. And for them to just say, we're not going to tell you, that's fishy. Okay, anybody. I mean, you don't have to have a college education to figure that one out. A grade school student could say, well, why aren't they telling you who you sent money to? What's the purpose of keeping that secret? Now, I did say I would like to contact this person and get my money back. That's the least I can do, but of course, since I didn't send any money out to anybody other than Paula, that would have just been a moot thing. And so I thought, well, okay, let's try something. So I told Paula, I'm going to send you a money order for $1, which is pretty much less than what the money order cost. But I wanted them to reject it. But they didn't. And for the remainder of her sentence, they did not reject any more. Just that one, and just for that reason. Now, across the nation, this Incarcerated Individual Betterment Fund is being used for things that it wasn't set up to be used for. And like I said, they get gifts. There was one time like $300,000 was used on gun range membership for staff members. And then it will, I guess maybe mine was used to buy a iPhone charger. I don't know. But we can't go in and say, what's this? How much funds did this account get, and where are they going? It's almost like the kind of like a piggy bank that one of your family members has. You know, they'll take loose change and drop it into this piggy bank, and you really don't know where the money's coming from or how much is in there until you just pull it out and count it. And if somebody comes along and just scoops a handful of coins out and walks off, there's a good possibility you won't know what's going on in that. And in that situation, that's understandable. But we need a little more accountability for this Betterment Fund. And I'm glad there's a group that's looking into this, because there's roughly 49 out of the 50 states are abusing this. And I got an email on it saying that they were going to look into it, and I'm glad. And I'm glad it was brought to my attention. I knew the Betterment Fund in the state of Washington was bad, but I wasn't aware of the national impact. So it's good that that's going on out there. Now, while Paula was incarcerated, I was pretty much restricted from going to any of the facilities because I was a danger, sending an email because I was a danger, visiting because I was a danger. I had violated multiple policies. Now, I spent a lot of time reading policies to try to find out what policy gives them the right to permanently terminate or permanently suspend my visitation and my email. But I couldn't find any of them that even used those terms. Now, ChatGPT has a feature where you can upload a PDF and then ask questions about it. So I took the policy on visitation and I uploaded it. And I asked the AI, can I be suspended or permanently suspended from visitation by violating this policy? And it came back, there's nothing in the policy about that. And so my interpretation was that there's nothing in the policy, and that's the only policy. If you're going to block a person from visiting, that's the policy, not multiple policies. Nowhere does it say violation of multiple policies. I mean, they're saying I could park in a handicapped spot and be banned from visiting. Well, since this falls under mail, and I would look at mail, there was nothing about multiple. I would look at funding, there's nothing about multiple. So they're just creating things. And it works for certain people, but it doesn't work for anybody else. Now, I waited out this whole ban thing, and it went away. I'm now able to visit, and I'm now able to send money through email in the Securus system. And I could talk on the phone. So, personally, it doesn't really bother me. And since Paula won a $9.9 million lawsuit, the funds that I sent to her that was confiscated doesn't really matter to her. At the time when she needed them, it did. But they just felt that, no, we want to throw our own weight out there. Okay. Now, with my restored email, I was contacting a person who's looking for love. She wants a pen pal. And I do videos. And so I think that's a different way of doing this, and maybe hearing the person, seeing the person in a little creative way. It's better than just looking at a picture and reading something. And in some cases, it works really well. So Heather Durham, she asked me to make a video for her. And so she called. She read her little spiel. I put it all into a video. And then we can send 30-second or less videograms to our loved ones. And since this video, when it was done, was less than 30 seconds, I was able to send the whole video to her. So I uploaded the video and sent it to her. And I thought she can look at it and tell me if she wants to make any changes, and then I'll post it. Well, they came back and said it was rejected. And the reason it was rejected is because the II could not be positively identified. Now, what that had to do with the videogram, I've never known to send a videogram where I have to identify everybody that's in it. And so me sending a video about Heather Durham to Heather Durham, they couldn't identify her. Now, I sent an appeal in. And in there I said, not only does the video identify Heather Durham, but it's her voice giving her name with photos of her and her DOC number, her ID number, the facility where she's housed, Washington Correction Center for Women, and her name, Heather Durham. These are all in the video. How can you not identify her? Are you at that point where you don't even know what your own inmates look like? Or has she somehow darkened her skin, changed the color of her eyes, cut her? I don't know. How can a prison facility not know that this is who this is in this video? Well, they approved the appeal, and so she was able to get the video, and it was a mess. She told me she wanted to redo it, and that's what we'll do. But it's just an extra step for me. If they follow policy, and there's nothing in the policy that gives them the right to deny a video because they can't identify who's in it. If they follow policy, we won't have all of this, and they won't have to go through this mess. And I think that's their big advantage, is that people just don't want to go through all of that nonsense. You know, it's almost like you map out a GPS route, and then the route says, well, this is the fastest way to go, and maps it out. Or you can go this alternative way, and it's an extra 30 minutes if you so choose to do that. And the people were saying, well, I'd rather go the short distance, and then the GPS takes them without, approval on the longer route. So you're driving down there, it's like, wait, this doesn't seem right. And that's what the DOC likes to do. They like to just take people on the long journey when they would rather take the short one. And rather than go through the mess of turning around and saying, blah, 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 they go on the long route. And that's wrong. No government organization should do that. Now, government organizations shouldn't be blocking emails or phone calls because they are required to give us our freedom of speech. And there are certain things, just like in out here on the outs, if you walk into a crowded theater and you yell fire and there is not a fire, that's not freedom of speech. If I were to send diagrams of the prison and give a written description on how the person should get down into the sewage system and walk out, and we'll meet them in the back with a pickup truck, that's a violation, and that should be blocked. Now, this funding that went to the wrong person, why are they blaming me? Why are they taking Paula's money for something that they definitely did wrong? The way I see it, if the individual in the prison gets the item, then it's approved. I could send magazine clips to the prison. If the prison officials give those magazine clips to the incarcerated individual, it's approved. And they can't come back to me and say, you sent these unapproved stuff, because I'll turn around and say, well, you gave it to the individual, right? Once I get it in the mail, I'm done. Everything else is up to you. It's completely under your control. If the United States Post Office decides to throw it off a cliff or to deny it and put it into a locker or a landfill or something, it's on them. You can't look to me and say it's your fault because we didn't get the package. I don't know. It's just, there's things that just are so frustrating with these people. Yet this is what they do constantly. And you guys need to know about that. You need to know that there's freedoms that's being infringed upon. And some people get angry about that. And when they come out, they're in worse shape. I was talking to Marianne Atkins about freedom of speech and human rights, because she was restricted. Well, not really restricted, but she one of her punishments was that she had to have her phone calls monitored. And where she is, they're normally not monitored, not like at the prison, but they wanted to listen in on her phone calls. And so they need a staff member to sit in there, and they'll put it on speaker, and then she can talk. Well, I called over there, and I said I'd like to speak to her, and they said, well, she's not on the phone that much. And when I was talking to her, she was saying, I can't get out and talk because there's not always a staff member available. Now, she has a right to at least 2 phone calls a week, but she wasn't getting that. It could be days before I get a chance to speak to her, and maybe once a week. And I told her, you have a right to 2 phone calls a week. Well, they don't have the right staff here. And I said, well, then they should not put this restriction on you if they don't have the staff. That's not her, and that's an extra punishment. They're not saying your phone calls have to be monitored. They're saying you can't call because we don't have the staff, because we put you on this restriction, but we didn't prepare for it. You know, if you're going on a vacation and you can't get a plane to take you to your destination, you don't go ahead and book the hotel, take the time off, stop your mail, knowing full well you can't get onto the plane, especially if it's in another country. You have to fly the plane to get there, but the dates that you need, you cannot get a flight out. You have to go to plan B. The DOC would go ahead and make those plans without the plane ticket. And intelligent human beings would not. So I'm thinking, who's running these people, running these facilities? Who's in charge of the DOC where they can't make simple, absolutely elementary, simple decisions? Don't send people to prison if you can't properly maintain their medical. Paula Gardner went to prison with HPV. She was a high risk for cancer. Immediately test her, counsel her, work with her, because she's a high risk. Don't just put her in the general population and hope for the best. She's suffering greatly for their dumb mistake, and all they want to do is throw $9.9 million to her and tell her, shut up. Hope you have a nice life. We'll visit your grave and put a flower on it. That's their idea of fixing everything. And these are human beings. You treat them like a human being. You show them that they're important. You show them that they have meaning. And when they get out, they may, in most cases, return that and help other people. I know a bunch of them who's gotten out and have helped people, and it warms my heart. They're now taxpayers. They're not taking money from the system. They're putting money into it. That's what we want. And my goodness, common sense is just gone. I don't like this Betterment Fund. If you're going to have it, keep track of it. And if you're going to block people, follow policy. And for Pete's sake, don't send a person to prison or put a person on restriction if you don't have the staff or the ability to follow procedure and give these people the resources that they need. Well, hopefully you learned a little bit something today, just like I did when I read some emails that all this stuff is being abused across the country. And I hope that you'll keep on top of this. Watch those news magazines, read articles, learn what's going on in your community, especially if you're close by a prison. Some of these prisons have illegal aliens locked away in them. Some of them have terrorists. So keep aware of your community. And if you feel that it affects you, like crime, get involved. Write to some of these incarcerated people. Let them know that they're not forgotten, and we want them to get out and become better and start giving to the community. I mean, if anybody's in there that harmed you and that you're a victim of some of these folks, I can understand that. I mean, who wouldn't? But, there's people in there that are drug addicts, and that's a disease. And if I go out and I'm driving a car and I have a diabetic episode, I crashed a car, I shouldn't be locked away for reckless driving. I need to be treated, and I need to be counseled. That's for sure. So hopefully if you see something like that turning up in your family members, or if you have a family member that's getting ready to go to prison, work with them, stick with them, don't abandon them. This is when they need you the most. A friend indeed is a friend in need. And your family, oh my goodness. Please don't let them down. Don't abandon your own family. Well, go out, have yourself a marvelous day, and make wonderful memories for tomorrow.